matters.
We're here at the 23rd Street Brewery with Matt Llewellyn. And Matt, basketball's over, football's still a few months away, but there's always fun to be had at the 23rd Street Brewery.
Absolutely. We've always got something going on here. The games are always going on. It's a great place to come enjoy everything out on the patio. Beautiful scenery out there. Great beer. I've got a great brewer, great food. It's always fun here at the brewery.
And the atmosphere is great and friendly and warm, too.
We always want to make sure you're a lot happier when you leave than you were when you came in.
Always fun here at the 23rd Street Brewery at 23rd and Castle. Make sure to come by when you're in Lawrence. Always great to catch up with Dr. Brad Whittle of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Everybody wants to make every year a great one mentally and physically, and certainly ASFCA can help in that regard.
Chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapies. We're going to address the body and the mind to keep you in great shape. With winter moving into spring, we don't want to have the opportunity to get hurt or to be slow and not do what we used to do, right?
Absolutely right, and you can do that in a variety of ways.
We can. We love looking at the body and how it moves, looking at the posture and how it holds us to be strong, to be safe, and really to help us do those things we love to do.
The wide variety and range of services you can get helps in that regard at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. 7 locations all around the Kansas City area. Find the one that's most convenient for you. And for more information, visit asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Our guest is Brenda VanLengen. She is the executive producer and host of the new If Not For Them docuseries. We'll get into more detail about that fascinating and really incredible project that I've been immersed in quite a bit. I didn't watch all those little videos, but I'll get into, I watched quite a few of them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so you mentioned this is sort of letting you branch out in various areas, and one of the ways that you branched out is that you're the rare person who actually does play-by-play and analysis, and both very well. That's a difficult transition to make, not necessarily from the ability to do it, but from maybe the ability to be accepted doing it.
Right. Yes. I'm very fortunate that I got some of my early opportunities. I love being an analyst because that's the position in a broadcast duo that really breaks down the plays and kind of tells you the why and the how behind the scenes and all of those things that, that maybe you wouldn't know if you didn't go to the practices or you weren't immersed in it. And I love doing that as a former player and a former coach because it just fits into my passions and my strengths. Well, after about 10 or so years of doing only analyst work, I was approached by Fox Sports. I was on the Big 12 package. And I was splitting analyst time with Debbie Antonelli, and they wanted to get me more jobs, but there weren't enough games to do that. So they said, one way you could do more games is to do play-by-play. And I'm like, okay, but I'm not really trained as a play-by-play announcer. I know what a play-by-play announcer does, but I'd never done it before. And I got to do a few small local broadcasts to kind of practice and kind of get my feet wet and try to figure it out a little bit. But, one of my first games on national television as a play-by-play announcer was Texas A&M and Cal Berkeley. And I always laugh because I'm like, not two small schools,
right?
Pretty prominent programs, and the ball goes up in the air, and I'm watching. I'm like, oh, I think I'm supposed to be talking now.
Right.
And so, it really took some time for me to figure out, what my role as play-by-play was. But when I did, and I got more comfortable with it, and I got some, kind of coaching from different producers and other people just observing play-by-play announcers to really understand the role. When I finally got the hang of it, it opened up all sorts of doors for me because, by that time, around 2010 or so, there were more former players and former coaches that were getting into broadcasting. And, I went to Kearney State College in Nebraska. So, and I was never a head coach at a major university.
Right.
I don't have these credentials of playing at Tennessee or playing at Stanford or coaching at UConn or any of those credentials. I don't have those. So I kind of hit a ceiling as far as being an analyst. So by shifting over to do play-by-play, it opened up a lot of doors for me. And I really, I did a couple of years at Fox Sports, and then they said, we're going to have you go back to being an analyst. And then ESPN said, oh, wait, you do play-by-play? And that's really when I shifted. So I had a good 3 years of national television experience on Fox Sports when ESPN picked me up. And then basically for the last 10 to 12 years, most of my assignments on ESPN have been play-by-play. And it's really allowed me to work with some of the top names in all of women's sports. I mean, I've worked with Candace Parker and Asia Wilson and such coaches as Holly Warlick and Gail Gestencourse, Katie Smith and Cheryl Swoops. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with all these big name former players and coaches by being play-by-play, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities. And I still do games as an analyst for Big Ten Network and also like ESPN Plus and other regional games. But I think I am one of the only ones in the country that does both play-by-play and analyst work. And, it's just been an incredible ride for this little girl from Roseland, Nebraska, to be on all these national television broadcasts throughout my career.
And at the same time, you've done a lot of other things, board members for various women's sports organizations and health and exercise publication, SheKC. So as you mentioned, you were incredibly busy in that regard as far as play-by-play and analysis, but that's really not, well, it's a full-time job, but it's not, not perceived as a full-time job. So you've had your fingers in a lot of incredibly creative pies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a great ride, and for a long time I did both. I had a job, and I had my broadcasting work, and then it finally got to be I was so busy that it was like having two full-time jobs. And thankfully, because I shifted to play-by-play, I did get a lot more opportunities, and so I was able to quit my full-time job at the time. And I still serve on boards and do other things as well. But for the last now almost 15 years, I've been able to just do broadcasting. And I think that's kind of where I got this idea to produce this docuseries. I'm like, I have time in my off season, and it's something that is important to me. So, it gave me the window of opportunity to really pursue that project.
Well, not surprisingly, you gave me a perfect segue into what we're going to talk about now, which is the ongoing and still, it's up, it's running, and then it's going to continue to run, if not for them, an incredible docuseries, as you mentioned, exploring the grassroots time of college basketball, women's basketball, where it was literally rising from nothing with all these very important people who, some of whom would eventually become famous, some of whom people don't know about at all. And just talk about the genesis of the whole project, because it's remarkable, and it's obviously still up and humming and building. So tell us how you built it.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for asking, Danny. I'm so excited to share this project with people, because we are in such a time where there's such attention to women's sports in general and women's basketball specifically, and not very many people know how we got started. And, this project has really evolved for me as far as the stories I've uncovered. But the way it started is, Pat Summit, the person that I admired all my life and talked about, she was the person that inspired me to get into college basketball back in 1987. She, of course, after winning 8 national championships and winning almost 1,100 games in her career, was struck with Alzheimer's and had to leave the game early and died way too early. And, it was right after her memorial service that I was speaking with Marcia Sharp, legendary coach at Texas Tech. And Marcia said to me, there are a lot of coaches that are in their retirement years that were starting to lose their stories. And you should do something about that, Brenda. And, Marcia Sharp and Jody Conrad and Marion Washington and Seal Berry and all those coaches in the Big 12 were so supportive of me for so many years. And I just saw this as an opportunity to honor them and to tell their stories. And at the time we were approaching the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and I thought, okay, well, let's go back to the 70s and that beginning era of Title IX and see what kind of stories I can uncover. And I started calling people, and then they would tell me, okay, you need to talk to this person and this person. And COVID hit, and I learned what a Zoom call was.
Right.
And I learned that you could actually record interviews, video interviews through Zoom. And so I identified, after talking to a lot of people, I identified my top 10 people that I wanted to do Zoom interviews with to capture some of the history. And then I went to a local company here in the Kansas City area in Overland Park, Real Media, led by Brad Burrow, who I had known over the years with different projects. Mm-hmm. And I told him my idea that I want to do something, and I want to do a documentary or something telling these lost stories. And I have these Zoom calls, these recorded. What do we do? And he really encouraged me. He said, Zoom calls are great, but it's not the quality that you want for a full-scale production. If you want this to live on forever and be great quality, we need to get out with great cameras and lighting and audio and do it right. And I said, okay, well, how much is that going to cost?
Right.
And so to do a promo video and set up a website, it was going to take that and time and travel and going and doing a few interviews was going to be about $10,000. And I went back to Marcia Sharp, and she wrote me a check for $10,000. Wow. And we got the project started. Yeah. And so, she had been the one that had encouraged me to do this. And then she, put her money where her mouth was, and she helped me get started. We launched a website almost 3 years ago now, ifnotforthem.com. And we set up a way that people could give money. I partnered with a nonprofit partner so that we could have people give tax deductible donations to help make it work. And then we just started raising money. And as I went down and interviewed the first few people, I realized what a huge story this is, because nobody has ever really captured the origin story of college women's basketball. There just wasn't a lot of media coverage. There wasn't a lot of interest. And so nobody ever captured it. And we are starting to lose all of those women that can tell the stories, and the men that supported them as well. And so I made a priority. I sketched out what I thought should be done, like a 10 episode series. And I after talking with all these people and my life experiences, I put together what I thought these 10 episodes should tell us up until the NCAA took over in the early 80s. And it was going to be like a $1.5 million project. And
right.
As we started getting money in through our website, I realized, $100 at a time or $500 or $1,000 at a time, we weren't going to get to 1.5 million very quick. So I made it a priority to raise enough money to travel the country to interview people as soon as possible before we started losing these stories. And it took about 6 months, and we raised $250,000. And I strategically went all over the country and interviewed over 100 people to collect stories of people that played and coached and were administrators in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and early 80s, and put the plan together to produce a docuseries.
And is the docuseries at this point going to be available through the website, or is there plan for other kind of distributorship, or where are we at right now?
So where we are right now is I've raised enough money to produce the first 5 episodes,
right.
And we do not have a distribution partner yet because I have not pitched it to a distribution partner. I wanted to put this project